There's an old saying, before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, you'll be a mile from them, and you'll have their shoes. Empathy isn't commonly taught in law schools. Thinking like clients is not a course you take. You take courses, read books, graduate, pass the bar, and bill hours all because you think like a lawyer, not like a client. This professional reluctance towards empathy is not unique to lawyers. It's in every profession, every walk of life, because it's logical. To be empathetic to others, we first have to really observe and understand how they feel and behave. This takes energy, memory, time, and bandwidth. It seems like if we waste our time wondering how everyone else feels, we'll never get anything done ourselves. So we put on our shark suits. We ignore emotions, disregard certain feedback, and push agendas through, come hell or high water. It's simple, really. When we are mindful of how others feel, it's empathic. But when we aren't, it's sociopathic. What if lawyers could design a law firm from the client's perspective? A firm clients want to interact with, that employees want to show up to? That's the question we're asking today on Lawsome. What if empathy is the key to success? Well, if that means wearing someone else's shoes for a while, it's time to lace up. Let's hit the road.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that knows what happens to the light in your fridge when you close the door. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in personal and business development. I am your co-host, Jake Sanders, and wouldn't you know, I'm joined by Paul Julius.
Wouldn't you know? Once again, Jake, once again.
America's sweetheart, Paul Julius. I have a picture of you in my locker.
I'm sure you do. Oh.
Anyway, I don't want to get too romantic, but what's on the show today?
On the show today, Hot Takes Buffet with an article from law.com. 10 predictions for legal tech in 2018. We interview adjunct professor at Vanderbilt Law, Kat Moon, about human-centered design and learn how lawyers and law firms can update their approach to their practice. Plus, we put our guest on the hot bench for 10 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The article today is from law.com. It's 10 predictions for what 2018 will bring for legal tech. It was a visual deck that you had to sign up on their email list to read.
Jake, you weren't already on law.com's email list?
No.
I'm surprised.
Well, and it was a small hurdle to jump to get to this, but I felt that it was a apropos moment on a show about design you want people to read and subscribe to your site, but you make them jump through a little hoop. It kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't think they were thinking 100%. I think it was about conversions or grabbing something, not about serving. So anyway, the trends. How is tech going to change in the law industry? What was your take on it, PGU?
Well, Jason.
Paul. Okay. For the serious people out there.
For the serious people out there, I think there's going to be a lot of automation. I think there's going to be a lot of things, and I think we brought this up before with Dina about things like discovery, stuff like that. There may be things to outsource, and technology is going to play a big part of that because, let's face it, as things go out of your office, you're going to have to monitor them more. You're going to have to be able to pull these things together somehow and have some sort of system for putting it all together and making sense of it, really.
Nice. Good point. Yeah. And I think all of the trends, which consolidating your discovery work, going through your own stuff before opposing counsel does, more investments to IT employees and stuff. And back to the automating processes, I think my take is this is going to require sense makers, people who can make sense of all of the data and all of the tech, because I think we get into it later in the interview that just because you have a tool doesn't mean it's a solution in itself. You can automate processes, but you have to feed these algorithms information, and you have to really work in the front to make sure that the process is run. And I think it comes back to almost every show we've talked about filters, about filtering in the front. Like with productivity and time management, you have to block off time and then send an email and say, hey, I can't do this. I can get to you now or at 3. So everything is about processing and filters, but it's about doing the work ahead of time. And I think a lot of people are just going to look at this sandwich and say, I don't want to eat it. It's too big.
I mean, that's an excellent point, is that you have to make this investment, not just in whatever systems, you need to install, but in the time and the personnel to make them work for you, So you're looking at it like, is this, is this scalable? Like, are we doing this because it's going to allow us to grow? It's going to allow me to do less of the stuff that I don't like and more of the stuff that I do like? Or like using those filters, like you're saying, like, will this give me more time back to me?
But that's the good point. You're coming back to the human side. And later in our interview, I keep saying humane design, which I think is not, it's actually human design. But I think it's important, and it's a consideration that Kat brings up in a way that's accessible, because there is a way to create a practice that makes sense and takes advantage of all the technological developments that have happened recently, Like, I think people are willing to invest, but there is something about the man hours that go in front that needs to be a consideration.
Well, yeah, and also you're talking to a lot of people who are coming from, still have and still work very much in, paper files. So it's really hard to even be talking about, it's going off into the cloud, which is the cloud. You know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
There's other hurdles, I think, that need to be cleared first before you can, really start to intelligently design things to automate some processes a law office would find useful.
But you make such a good point. It's like there's a trash fire, and on top of it is like a like a donut, or like we've worked really hard. What's a better? It's just like you're putting a wig on a pig. Or what is it?
I like the trash fire with the donut thing. I like where you're going with that.
Well, because I don't necessarily eat a trash fire, but I'm just thinking of like making improvements on top of a broken core,
Sure.
So a lot of people might have this gilded lily approach, and they're like, yeah, we got AI. I don't know what it does, but we have it, so it's not integral. So how can you find a way to make this a part of your practice? And we actually have tangible points, but a lot of it comes back to filters and just knowing what you want at the end. What do you want from this tool? Then you're better likely to get a solution.
Well, and to put it together too, making sure that you're you don't have this, bleeding edge, scheduling and reception and intake system, right? And then every morning you print out a list of people you're going to talk to today and hand it to your receptionist. You know what I mean? Like,
print out those faxes for me.
That's right. Exactly. Like there has to be some integration there, I think.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
I met Tanner, who works for Consultwebs, on a plane on the way back from Key West, Florida. And I'd just been thinking that I needed to do some more marketing for my law firm. So when he told me that he worked for Consultwebs, I was super excited. From the beginning till even now, I've been with them for almost 2 years, and the experience has really been great. Having Consultwebs on board is really like having your own team of people that really care about what kind of business you're getting. I mean, practicing law can seem kind of lonely. You always are wondering, how am I going to get clients? How am I going to make payroll? But with Consultwebs, it's not just me worrying about having people come in the door. They're there as well. And they've been so responsive. Since I started with Consultwebs, I have increased the number of employees double at least. And since I started with Consultwebs, the revenue has tripled. It's really been an incredible experience.
Go to consultwebs.com to learn more.
And now, for a lawsome interview.
With 19 plus years experience in human-centered design, agile project management, strategic communications, and the practice of law, Kat Moon helps law students, legal professionals, and legal educators leverage their superpowers to skate where the puck is going. As an adjunct professor at Vanderbilt Law School, she teaches law students how to use human-centered design to solve legal problems creatively by thinking like a client and not just a lawyer. As a strategist at Start Here IQ and as founder of her own company, Legal Alignment, Kat works with lawyers to create a practice that matches the demands of the 21st century, develop technologies to reduce stress, and help them maintain the human touch as they ethically practice law. With a Twitter profile that swells with inspiration on diverse subjects as poetry, blockchain, and legal tech, it's an honor to be connected to Kat Moon and welcome her to this very humanely designed episode of Lawsome. How are you, Kat?
Hey, y'all. I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. So here's the first question. How do you go from lawyer to strategic communications consultant? I see that as a short leap. But really, explain your trajectory from lawyer to today.
Well, so I started out in communications. So my undergraduate degree is in communication, and I went on to get a master's in communication and taught that subject at the university level for a bit before going to law school. So there's always been that underpinning, both in my experience and my interest. So practiced law for a while, but that was always, the communication part was always a part of it. And now it's kind of come back around full circle as I've exited my active practice to do more consulting work. I've really found that the communication piece of it is incredibly relevant to the direction of legal practice today.
Just jumping right into empathy, how can thinking like a client positively change the way lawyers practice? What's your thoughts?
Well, interestingly, I think that thinking like a client is actually at the heart of our ethical obligations. So it's really fundamentally what we should be doing and should have been doing all along. And I am an incredible proponent of the methods and mindsets of human-centered design, also referred to as design thinking, which is really less about the aesthetic of something and how something works and functions. And if we apply the methods and mindsets of human-centered design in conjunction with the other tools we have as lawyers to solving clients' legal problems, it really does put the client, the user, at the center of all that we do, which again, we are ethically obligated to do.
When you're working with one of your clients as a consultant, how do you help them know what the problems are with, because this is humane design as how the law firm functions at an administrative kind of level. Are lawyers, when you come into a client, is it pretty obvious where they're falling short, or are there themes, consistencies that you've seen with law firms, like they always fail here, or is it obvious of the problems that people have, or do you have to kind of help them see what their issues are?
Well, I think there's a range, there's a spectrum there. I always approach working with a client from the human-centered design perspective.
Sure.
So while I'm teaching them the tools, I'm actually using the tools to help them uncover the challenges they face and the opportunities that might be right in front of their eyes that they simply don't see. Part of a mindset of human-centered design is reframing. So it is digging deeper and taking a different perspective on either a problem or an opportunity, and seeing things that you might not otherwise see. And so that's something I facilitate with clients, and in clients referring to legal professionals. So, no one client engagement is like another. While there are definitely themes, because the practice of law poses certain challenges for most of us, everyone comes at it from a slightly different place and really needs to think about what the solutions to problems looks like for him or her, or practice group or firm, depending kind of on the scope of the project.
Are there common problems that you see with practice design and law firms that you work with? Like, they always have an impersonability to disbursements, or they never follow up with emails, or, I mean, is just kind of so people who work in a law firm can identify the problems that humane design, like design thinking, can improve. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yes, I think that most folks who practice law struggle with process
Mm.
and time. So, part of the struggle with time is our marriage to hourly billing, which poses constraints. I'll use the word constraints.
I like that.
And so I think that that's a pretty constant struggle, and really reframing the delivery of legal services to think outside of purely the billable hour. So you're not selling your time, you're selling the value that you provide to the client. And reframing that for most takes a lot of work, frankly,
Mm.
because it's just so ingrained. We sell our time.
Unpack that a little bit more. How are people hesitant to consider value and only thinking time? Are they just like, it's from 1 to 2 and that's it? At 2, I'm not gonna follow up, or this is the end of our time. How do people make the transition from seeing time as a spot to deliver value to clients?
So I think part of the constraint, part of the challenge faced is often the compensation model in a firm
Mm.
is based on time spent, not value delivered to the client. And so if you're being compensated based on the number of hours you've billed, which might be actually totally unrelated to the actual collections on
Mm.
your time,
Hmm.
which is sort of a separate issue, but
Oh yeah.
let's say your compensation is based on the hours you've billed. Fundamentally, it's almost impossible for that person, that lawyer, to reframe the work they do in terms of value, because they're not being measured based on value, they're being measured based on time. So one of the first steps is to really address compensation models so that lawyers are motivated to actually do their work based on value rather than time. And
Wow.
so that's a pretty fundamental reframing. But frankly, you get more of what you reward. I know that some famous person probably first stated those words, and I'm not sure
I
who to
remember.
credit for that.
I remember.
But I think that if an attorney is being rewarded based on the number of hours they bill, that is how they are going to measure their output. And that's going to be first and foremost. On many levels, that is not the most effective way to deliver legal services. Unpacking that for an individual attorney, or again, a practice group or firm wide, really depends on so many factors that are unique to that person, group, or firm.
Hmm.
Um, you've got to do a lot of underlying work to understand what the goals of the practice are, um, what the priorities of the individuals doing the work are, and start from there. So again, it's a very human-centered process. What are the needs of the people who are doing the work? And when I say human-centered design really lets us focus on the client, we also have to focus on the attorneys, the people doing the work.
Good
And
point.
that's,
Yeah.
I think, one of the beauties of, again, using the lens of human-centered design is it really gives us a pretty broad scope to dig into and figure out how can we be working better, not simply to serve our clients better, but also just to be fundamentally happier in the work we're doing. Because as a group, we're not really a very happy bunch.
I've seen some happy, I've
So
seen some happy lawyers.
that's a generalization, but I'm sure you're well aware of the statistics that show, compared to the general population, attorneys are much more depressed. We are
Mm,
more anxious. We are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. Our suicide rate is much higher than the general
wow.
population. So, there are some fundamental issues with the way in which we work and the stress that places on us. Again, a generalization, but
It's an important generalization, and I think I just had coffee with an old guest who works specifically with lawyers, and I told her what we were going to be talking about today, and I said empathy, and it's important, and you think like your clients, and she kind of ruminated on it, and she said, "Is empathy the most important part for a lawyer to dig into?" Because she's thinking, and I'm just speaking on behalf of some of our audience members who are a little bit leery of the approach to these soft skills, because there's three generations basically working in a law firm: millennials, which are your paralegals, and then Gen Xers, and then the baby boomers who don't get any of this stuff. So when you try and talk to, it's
yeah,
just the truth, and you're like, well, we have to think about people's needs first, and they're like, where's the money coming from? It's
right,
price and it's it's the
right,
P&Ls or whatever it is. But
yeah,
she said something really interesting, because if I'm a client and I've hired a lawyer, and the lawyer spends all their time saying, how do you feel? How does this feel? Am I doing it right? Does it look good? How does it feel for you? And then in the courtroom, they're like, how's everybody feeling? The temperature good? You guys good? I'm feeling good. You know,
So I think the empathy you just described isn't how I would construe empathy in terms of applying human centered design to your
okay.
law practice.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be a kind person and to worry about people's feelings, and that's kind of a personality thing, frankly.
Totally.
So some people are better at that than others. I think the concept of putting empathy into designing how you work is more from the context of putting yourself in your client's shoes to understand how they're experiencing the legal process, and not to protect them or to make things softer or
Mm,
necessarily happier for them, but
mm,
just how do you best help them through the process?
hmm
And that doesn't mean they're going to like it any better, frankly, because outcomes are outcomes. And you're working within a system that has very real constraints. So I don't think there's really a conflict between representing your client zealously and approaching how you deliver your services from the perspective of empathy.
mm,
I will disagree that one can provide the best representation without thinking about a legal problem from the client's perspective. In my 20 years of law practice, my experience is that clients come to me with a set of problems or challenges or opportunities of which there is a legal element. And it's my job, obviously, to figure out the legal part of it, but I'm not going to do the best job or the most comprehensive job or really help the client as best as I can if I'm focusing solely on the quote legal part. So I need to have a more fundamental and broader understanding of the context of my client's situation. So, for example, towards the end of my practice, my work was almost exclusively working with people who were creating new business, aka startups.
hmm
So a group of people would come to me with this fabulous idea and a business model, and they would need a business entity and you know check the box, all these kinds of, they would need certain kinds of legal help, but the only way I could truly help them was by understanding from a much broader perspective their situation. And a lot of the information that often was most helpful to me wasn't necessarily strictly, quote, legal in nature. So I was best able to help clients by really standing in their shoes and understanding what were their business goals, what ultimately did they want to achieve, what was the nature of, frankly, the relationship between the different people who were going into partnership together. Business legal counsel is as much, from my perspective, about the business part as the legal part. So to me, understanding that putting yourself in your client's shoes can really give you the best view of a situation. And then you step back and you put your lawyer hat on. You think like a lawyer. Yes, the client absolutely demands that from you. And depending on your work, when you put that lawyer hat on, you might need to become that shark. And it's not about, playing nice and making everybody happy and singing kumbaya. That's not what empathy is about. Empathy is understanding when the client needs you to wear that shark hat.
I love the idea about hats. And I think it's important because I am in with you, Kat. I totally agree. I think client-side thinking is the way businesses, law firms, anybody trying marketing, consulting, think about your clients, think about your audience. That's what you should be considering. So one of my questions is, so as you approach design and you see a problem, is there a way that design can't solve a problem? Or have you ever met a problem that like design couldn't help? Is there abstract things that don't fall into being solved by design thinking?
Well, I think human-centered design just gives us more tools. The process, the mindsets, simply additional tools, and they're not necessarily the right tools for every problem. So I think part of doing good work is understanding what tools you have at your disposal and which are best suited based on the problem or challenge in front of you. So absolutely, I think human-centered design is a great method for improving your delivery of legal services. So what does your delivery model look like?
Nice.
And that's not actually necessarily how you do your legal work, right? That the touch points that the client encounters with your practice and designing that whole delivery process. Design thinking can be very valuable in fine-tuning that, for example. It's not necessarily the right set of tools for solving a client's legal problem, although there can be pieces of it. And one, taking the empathetic mindset is a good piece of the process that might be helpful in the discovery phase of your engagement with a client. I think human-centered design offers a great method for approaching what some call wicked problems. And those are big, hairy problems that have a whole lot of elements involved that can be difficult to tease apart. So from my perspective, we've got some really, really big, hairy, systemic problems with the way both our civil and criminal justice systems work. So I believe that human-centered design offers a way for us to really meaningfully address some of those systemic issues. But that's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of time. I see great potential there.
Can I ask you specific examples of what you're thinking design, how design could help the systemic problems in criminal justice? Just an example.
Yeah. Well, so, I think there are so many problems with our criminal justice system.
Well, so some of it might be algorithms. I know algorithms associated with parole. Is that one of the things that you're concerned about? recidivism algorithms?
Well, I think I am conceiving more of a broader look at the system itself, as opposed to, and I'm not suggesting that this is something I have any capacity to even engage in. Just so you understand, I'm not like a criminal
That's how this
justice
podcast started.
right? I'm not a criminal justice expert by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
that's fine.
Although I did have a very interesting 1L summer experience working for a criminal defense attorney, but that's a different podcast episode.
Okay.
So when you're pointing to an issue that exists, I think because of these systemic problems, and so what I see most of us doing, because it's what we can do and we need to be doing these things, but what I see most of us doing when we're trying to fix problems, we're looking at a little piece of a very, very, very big problem, and we are essentially trying to address it in a way that stops the bleeding for that little problem at this moment in time. So it's a lot of band-aids on puncture wounds, and ultimately those small solutions are going to fail. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. We hit them all over here, another one pops up somewhere else. And so I think human-centered design, and many people much smarter than I have looked at human-centered design really as a way of engaging smart people to figure out some solutions to these really big systemic problems. That's where I think its true power lies. But you've got to get people to come together and radically collaborate and do the hard work to actually get anywhere with it. And because the process and the mindsets are both so new in the legal profession, I think we're probably not really close to that yet, but we're getting closer.
Thanks to you, and there's a lot of people that I'm following on Twitter, legal tech hashtags. There's a lot of people focused on this. The article that we start the show with, we cover about 10 predictions for, how, they're going to bring data science and kind of design thinking into, law firms. And big law is like embracing this because they have giant wallets. But for them to make a pivot and transition into some of this new thinking is much harder than a small firm or a solo practice. So people who are smaller can be more agile as the way they approach these things. And so Legal Alignment is is your company. And tell us about how you help lawyers, small kind of practicing lawyers, and what's under the hood. What kind of robots you got over there at Legal Alignment?
Sure. Well, I've got two partners at Legal Alignment, Larry Bridge-Smith, who works at Vanderbilt Law School with me, and Adele El-Messeri, who is our CTO. He has a PhD in artificial intelligence, specializing in natural language processing and machine learning. And so he's a smart dude.
Like you do, yeah.
So we do a couple of different things. So Larry and I both have about a decade's worth of experience in legal project management. My area of focus is more in the agile direction. Larry has more experience in what I would call a more traditional legal project management framework. And together we provide training and legal project management support to legal professionals. So that's kind of boots on the ground, just helping folks understand how project management tools can help them deliver better value to their clients while being profitable. So that's work we provide. And then with Adele, we're developing a cloud-based platform called Dash, DASH, which is it is a platform for managing legal work, and it provides a framework for any practicing attorney, from a solo attorney who really works with no one but clients, to as large a firm as you can imagine, to have at their fingertips a project management tool that helps them do their work faster, better, cheaper, and deliver client value profitably. So I think that's at the core of it. It provides both a system for managing legal process work as well as data analytics in a dashboard so that lawyers and firms can start mining data and using it effectively.
Here's
But
a
at the heart of that,
Yeah.
well, I want to add the heart of that. It's a tool, right? So for any tool to be used effectively, the underlying processes have to be in place.
Oh, yeah.
So a tool is not a solution. From my perspective, you actually have to do process design work before you can implement any tool effectively. And frankly, that's one reason why you have a lot of lawyers who spend a lot of money on fancy legal tech that they're not nearly getting as much value out of because they haven't done the underlying work to set up the way they work in a way that the tech is actually going to support effectively. It's not the tech's fault, although there
No.
is some bad. There is some bad tech out there,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with who use a particular practice management platform that shall go unnamed, and they're completely unaware of 90% of what the platform does.
Can obsessing about technological fixes and updates can that, just like what you said, a tool is not a solution. So
Mm-mm.
how do you help people make the most of the tools you give them?
So I start with helping them understand how and why they should be working. Like their work is where you start. And so if you have a very clear understanding of what you want to accomplish and you figure out how you're going to do that in a way that works best given all the constraints that you have, you do that first. And then you look around for technology that will support it. But if you start with the technology, you're not going to reap the benefits, and you're probably going to be frustrated. And I can't tell you also how many people have bought into a certain technology and then become wedded to it because they feel like, oh, I've invested so much time, energy, money, you name it, that they continue to use something that's not serving them well at all.
Well, here's a question. You've walked into places and they'd be like, we've been doing this for 15 years. Everything's inside of this. We only use 1% of it. How do you
Right.
get people to like get off of the dead horse?
You know, I've found that folks who are most interested in doing their work better fall on either end of a spectrum.
Mm,
So, on kind of the bad end of the spectrum is the person who has just hit a wall.
mm.
So, things are just not going well. And that could be for a number of reasons. And hopefully, they're not at the point of actually ethical violations, but sometimes that's the wall they hit. So things are bad, and they come to it from the point of like, I've hit the wall and I've got to make a change. And so I'm committed to making the change.
Mm.
And then I help them make the change. And absolutely unequivocally, 100% of those people are like, oh my gosh, that wasn't hard. That wasn't scary. And why the hell didn't I do this a whole lot sooner? Unequivocally, that's where they are.
That's
So
awesome.
that's one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then the opposite end of the spectrum are the people who are already kicking ass, frankly, and are doing really well and still want to do better. And so those folks are constantly curious and constantly iterating and trying to figure out how they can tweak, how they can improve, how they can do better. So those are, again, the two ends of the spectrum. Those are the folks who are most likely to jump in with both feet and say, let's do this. Most people are in the middle somewhere. And so there's a lot of reticence, like we're humanly wired not to really want to change. I think it's commonly known that lawyers are even more reticent to embrace change. But again, the mindsets of human-centered design provide great inspiration. One of them is curiosity. Like I want to know more and different stuff. Like I'm interested in learning, so I'm curious about these things. Another mindset is iteration, constantly improving. And neither of those things are nearly as exhausting as they may sound. They actually make like daily existence much more
Much better.
interesting. Yes. But they're mindset shifts. They're not mindsets that any of us really come out of law school with, unless you've taken my course. But,
oh, fancy that. So I think that's important, curiosity, empathy. But if people aren't willing to embrace this mind state or change to their mindset, is there anything you could possibly do to help shake people out? Because I'd imagine a lot of people are right in the middle, and maybe the shareholders are just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so I come in with my fire in my eye and I'm like, oh, I really want to do this. Is there anything that you can do to help? Or is it sort of like they have to hit that wall? It reminds me of like the 12 steps. It's first step and Mitch got a problem, so stopping short of that, is there anything that they could do or inspirational resources that, I don't know.
So I'm a big proponent of small experiments. The awesome thing is, like, you don't have to go in and change everything all at once.
Yeah, you should not do that.
I think well, some people should, actually. Those people who've hit the wall probably should.
Yeah,
but
good
I
point.
think for those of us in the middle, I think that any one of us could look at our daily work, like our daily existence, and say, here's this one thing that is just not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy about it. It doesn't bring me joy. It's not making me enough money. I mean, name your complaint about it, right?
Yeah.
And so pick the one thing and figure out one little thing that you can do differently to address that one challenge or opportunity. Run a small experiment. I suggest to anyone, you can design a small experiment that is a small change, run it for a couple of weeks, and assess your situation. Are things working better for you? Are you happier? Like, determine what your metric is for the improvement. And this is like 5 minutes of your time. Sit down, in 5 minutes, you can say, this thing sucks. I want it to be different. I'm going to do this one thing differently every day for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I'm going to sit for 5 minutes and reflect and say, are things better?
That's beautiful.
So
go ahead, Paul.
As an example. Yeah. Remember me? Sorry. I've been listening to this fantastic conversation. So let's take an example. Say someone's a lawyer's problem is that I'm overworked. Like I'm constantly buried in stuff. You could sit there and say, what we need to do is let's lean on this agile concept of pulling work towards you instead of constantly trying to push it off. So we're going to design a system here that allows you to have a better process to take work when you're ready for it and not be constantly just task-based and, get everything done by a certain time, overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I would call that proactive versus reactive mode. And that's a place where most lawyers that I work with can start. And the small experiment could be something as simple as using a process called time blocking. I would say, again, most folks I work with, if their issue is time management, they will tell you that they spend most of their time responding to other people and feel like they don't have control over when and how their work gets done. Mm-hmm. And so a simple experiment to run is time block your calendar so that you are controlling when you're doing what. And just try that again for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
That was easy.
Yeah. Problem solved.
So just anybody out there, what's one tip that they could take away and benefit their own practice? And what's an easy way to bring human-centered design thinking into their office?
So my one tip would be curious, be more aware, be more self-aware. Pay attention. Start with yourself.
Ten questions we ask everyone.
Here we go with the cleverly titled 10 questions we ask everyone. Number 1, what was the last book you read?
Wired to Care.
All right. Number 2, what is your best habit?
I am curious.
Excellent. Number 3, although I think you just answered it, but I'll ask it anyway. Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or none of the above?
Twitter.
All right. Number 4, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Solid.
And tea.
Okay. Oh, didn't expect that.
Whoa. Like mixed?
At the same time.
No.
Number 5, what is your favorite place?
Beach.
Number 6, is Keanu Reeves a good actor?
Skip.
Number 7, what was your first job?
Newspaper reporter.
Number 8, what is a skill you have outside of your current occupation that you incorporate into your work?
So I really don't differentiate inside, outside, I guess, of my current occupation. Hmm.
And that's okay. If it's
Yeah.
all inclusive, then that's
I
we're
think
good
it
with that.
all the lines are blurred.
Okay.
I like
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Number 9, what sites, blogs, or newsletters do you regularly check in with?
So I'm a big proponent of carving out a little time just to go down rabbit holes. And that takes me different places. So often I'll start with Twitter, and who knows where that's going to go.
Mhm.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Number 10, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
With my family. I love time with my kids, my husband.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for playing 10 questions we ask everyone.
You passed.
Absolutely. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, that was tough. It
The
was
only
tough.
answer that counts is coffee or tea, and you nailed that one. So
By saying, and we haven't had anybody skip the Keanu question, so that was
yeah, that was
bold.
a first.
That was bold.
I like it.
Ah.
For show notes, links, and info, go to www.consultwebs.com/lawsomepodcast. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.